Shabbat Shalom and welcome. We moved to the chapel because we thought we'd have a small crowd. Sorry to squeeze you in here, but welcome. You're probably noticing that it's not Cantor Lamb, it's not Cantor Sarah, it's not Cantor Kyle, so what's going on here? This is Stephanie Kupfer. She's a student at the Academy for Jewish Religion. She's a protege of Cantor Lamb's, and we're fortunate to be able to give her a trial. I wouldn't say, what would you call this? No, not an audition, because I don't want to give anybody the wrong impression, including her. So let's just say an opportunity to stretch spread out her wings and give it a go here in front of the congregation. So go easy on her, go easy on me. Well, you don't have to, but go easy on her. Welcome. We're just happy to be here to celebrate and to recognize that this is Thanksgiving weekend and to be gathered in prayer to not only give thanks secularly as we did with turkey on Thursday night, but also here together on Friday. If you're seeing this book for the first time, do you want to tell them a little bit about you?
Sure.
Like where you grew up, maybe where you're from, those kinds of things?
Absolutely. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for having me here. It's a pleasure. I look up to Cantor Lamb, and he's a mentor and a true supporter. I am from Westlake Village, California.
Far away, huh?
So far away. Grew up in Westlake Village, went to Westlake High, went to Pepperdine University for college, local, and then I received my master's in music from San Francisco Conservatory, was pursuing an opera career in New York and Germany, and then I realized that it wasn't for me. There was a void, and I wanted something more meaningful. And I realized I eventually want to have family and kids and raise a wonderful Jewish family, so I decided to get my feet a little wet, and I did my first year of Cantorial school in New York under Cantor Salzim. I'm sure that name sounds familiar. And I fell in love with it. I fell in love with the liturgy, I fell in love with the history, and I knew it was for me to go down that pathway. So after spending almost 3 years in New York, as much as I loved New York, I'm a California girl, and I decided I have family here. My parents are here tonight. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for coming. My number one fans right there. So I decided after a year of Cantorial school there, I'd move back here. And now I'm a third-year Cantorial student, studying under the tutelage of Cantor Nathan Lamb. And thank you again for having me here.
Cantor Lamb likes to throw them into the cold water right away and ask them to swim. So here she is. So we begin on page 8. Let's read together. So as I was saying, so this is the new prayer book you'll be seeing at Stephen Wise. Generally on the right-hand side are passages from the liturgy. That rule is broken on this first reading, but that's where we'll be from this point forward. And the left is interpretive prayer, reflective prayer, interpretations of the passages that are on the right-hand side. You are free always to either follow along in the book with us or to browse, to flip through the book and enjoy what's written. Many of these passages are really beautiful poetry that reflects on what it is to be gathered here. So let's begin together on page 8. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created, and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. Page 12, L'chu Niranena.
L'chu Niranena, L'chu Niranena, L'chu Niranena, l'Adonai. L'chu Niranena, L'chu Niranena, L'chu Niranena, l'Adonai. Nari Naria, Naria, Litzuri Shenu, Nekadma Fanav Betoda. Naria, Naria, Litzuri Shenu, Vizmira Naria La. Nechune Ranena, Nechune Ranena, Nechune Ranena, Ladonai. I can't hear you guys. Lechune Ranena, Lechune Ranena, Lechune Ranena, Ladonai.
Page 24, Shalom Aleichem. And wait a minute, Roger, I would like to invite our mothers of the B'nai Mitzvah to come forward, please. Roya, Jennifer, Atusa, and Jill, please come forward. I saw 3 out of 4, I think. Yeah, 3 out of 4. Now, Roger, hit it.
Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boachem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mimelech, malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mimelech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Seitrem leshalom, malachei hashalom, malachei elyon. Mimelech, malchei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Chadodi is on page 20. We do verses 1, 2, and 9. If you want to know why, ask me after services. There's actually a reason for it, unusual reason. But at the ninth verse, we rise and will face Jerusalem, bow to the doors as we welcome Shabbat.
לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לך לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לה לה. לך לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לך לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. שמור וזכור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ותפארת ולתהילה. לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי היא מקור הברכה, מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה. לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. We stand up now.
Yeah, you ready? Smooth second.
בואי ושלום, עצרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני המסגלה, בואי חלה, בואי לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה. לך לך דודי, לקראת לקראת קלה, פני פני שבת נקבלה.
Please be seated. These are the Psalms that really mark Kabbalat Shabbat. The Chadodi is one of the high points. The next one is Psalm 92. It's Mizmor Shir. It's on page 22.
So I'm going to need your help with the chorus. It goes like this. Mizmor, mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-shabbat. One more time. Mizmor, mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-shabbat. Mizmor, mizmor shir, shir leyom ha-shabbat. Now on lies. Yai, die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Yai, die, 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 die. Die, 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 die. Tov leodot l'Adonai ulezamer l'shimecha elyon lehagir
We continue with the Baruch Hu on page 28. Please rise. On the next page.
El Chai v'Kayam Tarmirim lo chalenu le'olam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Hamari v'Ravim. נגי יומם ולילה ואחוותך תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב עמו ישראל Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed
Page 36, Yahavta.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come. The song of a land once ravished by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. The song of a world redeemed, the song of peace.
מלכותך ראו בניך בוקר ים לפני משה ומרים צאי לי אנו ואמרו אדוני ימלוך לעולם לעולם ועד יאי די 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 יאי די 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 תפארת אדוני את יעקב, וגלו מיד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Page 42.
ותקנינו ביצה טובה מלפניך, והושיענו למען שמך והסר מעלינו אויב תבל וחרב ורב ויגון, והסר שטן מלפנינו. ופרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני הפורס סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל.
Page 44.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את צורך השבת לדורותם בביטחונם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בביטחונם ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם אותי לעולם אותי לעולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בביטחונם כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בביטחונם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם בביטחונם.
Please turn to page 253. Take a minute to think of someone you love, a friend, a family member who is ill. Hold them in your hearts as we sing this prayer of healing in the middle of the page. Yishaberach.
Find the courage to make our lives a blessing and let us say Amen. Yisheberach imotenu mekor habracha avotenu as those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Well, Cantorial said we were in for a treat, and I think we can trust him that indeed we are. Thank you.
Thank you.
How many of you sat back last night after dinner and did one of these and said, I can't eat another bite? It happens, right? We pat our bellies. Maybe for the pilgrims, that experience of a full belly was a new experience. But for most Jews, that's kind of the way we roll, isn't it? I mean, that's most meals. If you don't end a meal with oi, it wasn't a good meal. So how is that full belly actually a sense of an expression of thanksgiving? It doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, when was the last time you were absolutely full? Like 3 nights ago, 4 nights ago, 5 nights ago? And we're regularly full. So to think about this new feeling of a full belly as being a sign of thanksgiving is probably, well, it's a bit of a stretch. I mean, for a real Thanksgiving, we should suffer first, right? You know the meal that I really feel is a Thanksgiving meal? The meal at the end of Yom Kippur, right? Then those bagels are the best bagels you've ever seen. And that lox is outstanding. You're really grateful for that lox, or whatever it is you're eating to break your meal. But when you start out with all you need, and every meal is a meal of all you need, and you're not really suffering, how is that Thanksgiving? You know, there were pictures in the papers, there always are after Thanksgiving, of the folks, the homeless folks at Jordan Mission or Market Street Mission, and you see them getting a plate of Thanksgiving food put in front of them, and you can understand. For them, it's really a Thanksgiving meal. How many times do they sit down, actually, to a meal where someone serves them? They experience Thanksgiving. But for us, it's a lot tougher to get that real sense. Now, of course, we can't and we shouldn't create suffering so we feel thankful every time we sit down. But Judaism has provided a workaround, as Jews are good at doing. It's called the Birkat HaMazon. It's a prayer we say at the end of the meal. And it reveals the pragmatic Jewish approach to appropriately giving thanks, not just on Thanksgiving, but at the end of every meal. And it's not just a simple blessing. What the tradition says is when your bellies are full, then you bless. And not just a short motzi, that's a quick blessing because we're ready to dig into the meal. After the meal, when we're sitting back and patting our bellies, Jewish tradition says long, elaborate blessing, prayer of thanksgiving. And the rationale for the whole blessing comes from one paragraph in the book of Deuteronomy, the 5th book of the Bible. It says, and I'm paraphrasing, there's a reason God took you 40 years through the desert. There's a reason it took you so long to get to the promised land. It was to test you. It was to challenge you. It was to put you through an ordeal, the Torah says. It was to teach you that in the famous phrase, man does not live by bread alone. Lo al halechem levado yicheh adam. It's not just about filling your belly. Rather, the tradition says, the Torah says, you're sustained by laws. You're sustained in life by principle. You're sustained in life by hope. You're sustained in life by aspirations. It's not just about bread. And ultimately, as the Torah conveys it, you get to where you are in life, not merely by your own actions, but ultimately, the Torah says, by the grace of God. So as Jewish tradition frames the blessing at the end of every meal, the suffering does precede the thankfulness, the gratitude, the blessing. And in fact, the whole story of desert wandering is, of course, at the center of our story about ourselves as Jews. When your origins are slavery, and when you retell that tale all the time, when your path to freedom is so convoluted that it takes a generation, it takes 40 years, and it requires sweltering and sweat and walking through a barren desert, well, that freedom is going to mean so much more to you. It's got to. And so the Torah continues. It says, when you finally get to the promised land, when you finally realize your goals, when you finally get to the culmination of your destiny, as Torah sees it, when you're fully satisfied, that's when you bless. When your bellies are full, you bless. So in other words, and to bring it a full circle, as the Torah conveys it, that moment when you sit back and say, I can't stuff another bite in my mouth, that's the time to remember where you came from. That's the time to put yourself into Jewish history and to remember where you might have been if things had not gone your way, and offer blessings. Another name for the Birkat HaMazon is the grace after meals. Now, in this case, the English translation is actually a lot more powerful than the Hebrew. Hebrew, Birkat HaMazon, just means blessing over food. But grace after meals, that word, grace, is a powerful word. It says when you finish your meal and you've eaten your fill, don't be lulled into thinking that you got it all by your own doing. Judaism says it wasn't you. The reason you're blessing is because it was the grace of the world. Of course, it's not just about food, it's about everything that we have, everything that we achieve, everything that we possess. Judaism reminds us the belief that we somehow earned it and that we deserve it is a bit of an illusion that we make for ourselves, that ultimately we're just lucky. Had circumstances been different, we might be the ones sitting at the Market Street Mission getting that meal on a plastic plate placed before us. So that word grace is complex. It speaks about the gifts in life that we're given for no reason. The gifts that we give that are given that aren't in exchange for something. The gifts that we give others that aren't in exchange for something. It's not bartered, it's not swapped, it's not purchased, it's not even deserved. It's just given, and if we're lucky, it's just received for no other reason than that we are alive. It's not luck, it's not parentage, it's not country of birth. I think that ultimately, the most essential reason for Thanksgiving is to compel us to bring more grace into our lives. Because as a result of Thanksgiving, I think we're invited to extend grace to others. And it's an incredible concept. Here's an awe-inspiring account that I think illustrates its power so directly. You remember the shootings in Charleston last June, when that deranged white supremacist sat with 10 or so members of the Mother Emanuel, what a beautiful name for a church, Mother Emanuel Church, at their regular Bible study. And sitting around the circle were people from ages of 25 to 75. Daniel Simmons, Cynthia Graham, Ethel Lance, Clementia Pickney. There were mothers, grandfathers, sisters, brothers, parents sitting around a table studying Bible. And the shooter, I'm not even going to extend the dignity of naming from this bema, took out his gun and cut them all down. That's not the whole story, though. That's just the painful tragedy. Several months later, when the murderer was arraigned in court, a packed courtroom in the city of Charleston, the grieving relatives of those who were murdered, the sisters and the aunts and the brothers and the mothers and the fathers and the children, were also in church, and they were in the court, and they were sitting in the front row. And the court was considering the request of the prosecutor, fulfilling what he thought was the will of most people, pursuing the death penalty against the murderer, and that was the way everyone thought it would go. And at that moment, the families of the victims stood up. And there, in front of the court, in front of the city of Charleston, they asked for God's forgiveness for the murderer. And then they offered their forgiveness to this despicable killer. Now, I don't know how they did it, but every single one of them stood up together and did it. And they let go of the anger, and they dismissed any notions of retribution, and they refused to renounce the murderous killer and to seek his blood. I mean, that's what most of us would have done, but these folks, out of sheer grace, decided not to. And that was an act of pure grace. When every other person might have hungered for death, they did the opposite. And here's what it did. It transformed the town. Because instead of rage, instead of violence, instead of screaming demonstrations and riot police, Charleston experienced an outpouring of love. And the city, the whole city, moved one step closer to healing. So what compelled these people to extend grace to a killer? Gratitude, thanksgiving. Gratitude for the love they had from the people who filled their lives up until that fateful, horrible day in June. Gratitude for a community that stood with them through their pain. Gratitude for that church named Mother Emanuel. Gratitude for a country that extended a hand of love to them after the cataclysm that reshaped their lives. And because they were thankful at that moment for what they had, and for what they had before it was lost, they offered grace And the power of that grace was transformative. So I ask you, what would it be like for us to offer more grace? What would it be like for us to offer more grace when every other instinct might lead us to anger, to retribution, to rejection, to hostility? Because that's the next step after Thanksgiving. After gratitude comes grace. We give thanks so that when it seems least likely, least possible, and almost unbearable, we can extend a hand of grace. Now, in this world, it's time for grace. Our world needs more of it. Now, this is not a call to go to the place where the folks from Mother Emanuel went. Frankly, I don't understand that. On the other hand, I'm awed by it. I'm inspired by it. When the world is most violent, maybe it's on us to find places to offer grace. When fear drives us to raise the gates and shut out immigrants and call for blood, maybe it's on us to offer grace. We don't need to forgive killers, and certainly we shouldn't sacrifice our safety. But look around. There are so many suffering in our city, in our nation, and in our world. They are homeless. They are wanderers. They're refugees clamoring for a place to rest their weary feet. They need our grace. Those fleeing the ravages of war-torn cities, they need our grace. Yes, the world needs our strength. And the people of the world need our grace. Amen. The Amidah is on page 46, and it continues through to page 62. You can read the words that are on the pages, or you can pray your own thoughts, enjoy your own quiet moment. We recite the Amidah standing. When you're finished, you may be seated.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. One more time. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amecha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Ki ata melech Adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'tov be'einecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael. B'chol tov v'chosha b'shlomecha. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam. Tasim Leolam.
When my 23-year-old daughter was 3 months old, I used to sing that Shalom Rav to her to help her go to sleep. Stephanie, if you would come by, she probably would have actually gone to sleep instead of listening to me sing. Prayers for our country and Israel on page 258. O Garden of Life and Liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Amen.
Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Sur Yisrael v'Galo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Sur Yisrael v'Galo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, Sur Yisrael v'Galo. Avinu, Avinu, Sheba Shamayim, v'nomar Amen.
The Kiddush is on page 5. I'd like to first recognize our B'nai Mitzvah and ask, I think it's all gentlemen, Gabriel, Ryan, and Cooper to come forward. It's all right, Ryan, Gabriel, Cooper, there we go. I didn't see Shannon walk in. No Shannon, right? But now I'd like to invite, come on up, Ryan. Just give you your moment before I crowd the bima. If you are visiting or back from college, if you're a student of this congregation, you went to one of our schools, our religious school, Y School, Milken, when it was ours, would you come up on the bima so that we can appropriately recognize you? So I know, but there are going to be a lot of you. So I see so many of you, and I want to just recognize that you're here. So yeah, Marissa, Liz, everybody. Got Kathy and Allie, and who else do we have here? Because that you all made the effort to be here, we're glad to see you and to know that you're all succeeding all over the country, doing all the wonderful things that you do. I wish we had enough Kiddush cups for all of you, but we have a lot, so you can share. Besides, I imagine you do enough drinking in school. Please rise.
Okay.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron le'maaseh bereishit ki hu yom techila le'mikra'ei kodesh zecher yitziat mitzrayim ki vanu v'charta ve'atanu kidashta mikol hamim ve'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uvratzon hinchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-Shabbat.
Everybody please turn around. We continue on page 282 with the Aleinu.
Aleinu v'shabeach Adon Zakot, v'tekivan yotzer brishit, she'asanu k'vayei arazot, ve'lo savanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, she'lo samchem k'inu kahem, ve'kol aleinu v'chol ha'amolam, v'anachnu cholim, v'shamim yodim, v'ifnei melech, v'alei hamayim,
Please be seated. I'd like to invite a member of our board, Ginny Kahn, to come forward to share a couple of announcements. And thank you to all of our college students for standing up here on short notice, being put on the spot, but we are proud of you all.
Thank you, Rabbi Stern. Shabbat Shalom and welcome. My name is Jenny Kahn, and I'm here representing the Temple Board of Directors this evening. I've been asked to make a few announcements. If you missed Rabbi Woznika's dialogue with Ambassador Dennis Ross last week, the video is now available on the temple website. Can you not hear me? On Tuesday, December 1st at 7:30, we will welcome Gendy Grinstein as our guest speaker. Mr. Grinstein is founder and president of the Reut Institute in Israel, and he has a new book entitled Flexigidity, The Secret of Jewish Resilience, Prosperity, and Leadership. Our next WISE School open house will be December 2nd, so if you have children ready for school or know someone who may, please spread the word about our fabulous schools, and you may visit the wise-school.org for more information and to RSVP. There are numerous opportunities to get to know Rabbi Yoshi. The next one is 9:15 on Friday, December 11th, and it'll be a breakfast event. Please check the wisela.org website for more information and for the full lineup of events this year through our Center for Jewish Learning. Finally, if you're looking for a Hanukkah gift with meaning, may I suggest a couple of possibilities. You might consider honoring a family member or friend by dedicating a personalized nameplate in our new prayer book. The recipient's information will be placed on the inside cover. Or you may consider a State of Israel bond. Information for both of these is outside on the table when you leave, and I've also been asked to tell you that the gift shop will be open this evening. Thank you for your attention, and I'm available after services to welcome you and to say hello if we haven't connected yet. Thank you.
Wow, it's the first time a board member got applause after the announcement. We continue on page 294 with the Kaddish. We recognize those of you who are in different stages of mourning by asking you to rise. If you are first in the 30 days of mourning, the first 30 days after the death of a loved one, please ride the period we call Shloshim. If you're in the first year of mourning after the loss of a loved one, please rise. If you are observing a yahrzeit, the anniversary of the death of a loved one, please rise. And now we stand beside you as a community in solidarity and support as you recite the Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbi, b'alma divarach utei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'gamechon u'v'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, b'gala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mivarach le'olam u'la'almei al-maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'ytalal shemei d'kudisha b'richu, le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran v'ama v'imru amen. Shalom min Shemaya, v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. We ask that you please remain standing. I'm guessing it's Adon Olam, excuse me?
Yes.
Is that right? Which is on what page?
321.
Thank you. 321, Adon Olam. There it is.
Adon Olam Asher Malach, V'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra, V'yeinaso B'chefzo Kol, Azai Melech Shemo Nikra, V'yacharei Kichlot HaKol, V'vahado Yimloch Nora, V'hu Haya, V'hu Hoveh, V'hu Yeh V'tifara, V'hu Echad V'ein Sheni, V'hamshila Le'achbira, V'li Rishit, V'li Tachlit, V'la'oz V'hamisra, V'hu Eli V'chai Gali, V'tzor Chevli V'eit Sahara, V'hu Nisi U'manosli, V'nat Kosi V'yom Ekra, V'yom אישן ואירה ואם רוחי גביעתי אדוני לי ולא אירה.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Please come forward and enjoy some challah. Baruch atah Adonai, nice and loud. Nice and loud.
For the
Motzi, the motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi